Winter Session 2016 Blue Mountain Zendo Dharma Talk by Joriki Baker Osho. Today's case is from Mumonkan Case 21, Uman's shitstick. Koan. A man asked Uman, "What is Buddha?" Uman said, "A shitstick, kanji katsu." Mumon's commentary. Of Uman it must be said that he is so poor that he cannot prepare even plain food. He is so busy that he cannot write properly. Very likely they bring out the shitstick to support the gate. The outcome? It's just obvious. Mumon's poem. A flash of lightning. Sparks struck from a flint. If you blink your eye, it is gone. Please turn towards me. It amazes me how wonderful and dynamic this practice is. Today, I looked over across to the Tanto position and saw a roll of toilet paper. So perfect. And whoever says that you pass koans just doesn't quite get it, because I looked at it and it said, "Oh, shit paper in the Zendo!" So, and I did not remove it, so I left it there. It was a great practice. So Master Unmon Bunin died in 950. He was a successor of Zeppo, although most of his training was extensively with Bokushu. And Bokushu was a very dynamic teacher, a very direct and precise teacher. It's said that actually he would know his students' level of insight by the sound that their feet made on the wood coming to the Dokusan room. And he would either invite you to come and sit, or he would grab you by the collar and shove you out of the Dokusan room and slam the door. That's all you got. So I think Genjo Osho is pretty nice. Pretty kind in his approach. Uman's first 3 Dokusans were just this. First one, bang. Second one, same thing. Lapel out the door, bang. And the third one was kind of shaping up to be a easy out. Unmon was grabbed by the collar and told to speak, and he couldn't, so he was shoved out the door. But this time, he didn't quite make it out of the door all the way. His leg was in the door, but yet the door was still shut. Broke his leg. Immediately, he felt great pain from the broken leg, and he said, "Ow!" And at that moment, it is said that he awoke. Uman Zen was really quick, simple, and terse. Very, very, very direct. It's said that his technique was to offer one verse, but yet his one verse actually contained 3 verses. So quite a talented and insightful teacher. We also find him 4 times in the Mumonkan, right? So that should tell you something too about Uman. And I said that Uman's teaching was said to have 3 aspects to it. And I would think that this probably would be true for any teacher, but yet his were very, very clear and very, very terse and direct. The first one is that his answer fit perfectly to the moment, to the student. It is said that it is like a box and lid. Perfectly contains the question or insight posed. So you can kind of think of it, as kind of encapsulating and closing perfectly what was asked or what was needed. The second is that his answers address the ebb and flow of discursive thought, meaning they stayed with. And we all know from doing koans, right? Almost all of them, of course, but a really good koan that we're really solid and really working on just stays with us no matter what. Osho had talked about mu. Mu stays with us forever. Mu, no matter what. Mu, always with us. Always just following that discursive thought. Cutting off. The third aspect of his approach is cutting off the discursive thought to the point where it's called the waves rolling in. So there's just this wonderful, wave crashing after wave crashing. There's no residual, there's no resistance. Just this wonderful flow of consciousness and awareness. Like the bell. Just waves rolling in. He also refused to let anybody document any of his teachings. Forbid it. And we're lucky because there was one renegade monk that went against his teacher's wishes, felt so strongly that he needed to do that, and he documented some of Uman's teachings actually in the sleeve of his robe, so he wouldn't forget. And thanks to him, we have these wonderful flashes of Uman's Dharma. A monk asked Uman, well, what is Buddha? What is Buddha? And was he saying, what is Buddha? What is this? Tell me, what is this? What is Buddha? So much so that he ended up in the outhouse, could not contain himself. Maybe. Or maybe he was demonstrating his insight. What is Buddha? Maybe. There also comes a point when a student wants to test his mettle on a teacher and will try to turn the tables and become the host and the teacher, the guest. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Not the point. So these are all things to kind of think about. What is Buddha? What is Buddha? What did he mean? How did he mean it? So Uman's reply was terse, direct, simple. It contained box and lid. It followed ebb and flow. And it resulted in waves rolling in, also called heaven and earth together. What is Buddha? Gazikatsu! So kan means dried. Shi means shit. And ketsu means a stick. So dried shit stick. And not very different from the roll of shit paper earlier that was in the Zendo. It's what they used at the time in the outhouse. So it wasn't something unusual at all. It was something just very common. And something maybe that we cringe when we hear. It's, oh my God, he's saying shit stick. It's a Buddha, a shit stick? Toilet paper in the Zendo? Ugh. And it was really, to say kanzikatsu to somebody really is calling him a shithead at the time. So, you know, you have to wonder about that. Kanzikatsu, what is he saying? You monk, shithead. I'm in here, what are you doing? Real common term. And we hear it many times. Rinzai, one example in the book of Equanimity in Case 38, and of course Rinzai is the founder of our school. And the koan is there's one true person of no rank that is always coming and going through the gate on your face. And the monk says, what is the one person of no rank? Rinzai jumps down from the lectern, grabs the monk by the lapels, and says, the true man of no rank, what a shit stick. So Rinzai and Uman's responses are very similar, very direct to the point, and with perfect intent and accuracy. Fit the circumstances, once again, cut off the ebb and flow of discursive thought. There was a Japanese teacher from northern Japan, and it said that he was so wonderful at ritual. Absolutely just wonderful at ritual. Like everything he did was this wonderful expression of the Dharma, spontaneous and somehow perfect, even in its imperfections. It was in probably the coldest part of the winter, as many of us can relate now, as it is outside, so you can kind of visualize this well if you'd like. And it's said that his attendant went out to the outhouse, or it's also called benjo. so the outhouse, and looked down into the hole which was dug, and in the hole were these perfect pillars of shit. Everyone perfect, and on top of each pillar was this little one sheet of toilet paper resting perfectly on top. So it's one on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. And the attendant looked and said, "Ah, what a wonderful expression of Buddha." Soen Nakagawa Osho, who I didn't have the pleasure of meeting, but of course Genjo Osho has, both in Japan and in the States at Daibosatsu. Soen couldn't necessarily pronounce shit correctly. Shit and sit sounded very much similar. So many times when he gave Teisho on this koan, he would spell it out. S-H-I-T. Sit! 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 And it said that a lot of people still, so he wanted to be sure, so he'd go, sit! Sit! Point to his rear, sit! It's interesting how people with deep insight tend to be quite funny, quite free, innocent. Uman's shitstick was encompassing, consuming. Nothing escaped his kanzikatsu. With this being said, we have to ask ourselves still exactly what did he mean? Did he just mean to startle and shock the monk by using something as dirty and disgusting as a shitstick? Or was there more to that? Just making a statement. What's your immediate reaction? And that's really the important part of this koan. What is your reaction when you hear shitstick or Buddha is a shitstick? What is your reaction? Well worth looking into. It's said that Uman had, these three aspects of his teachings. But I'd like to add a fourth in this, and it's not just Uman, but it's in general. I want to suggest the fourth is humor. Right? It's not something that is talked about a great deal. And it's everywhere around us in Zen practice. But we just don't see it because we're so locked in black and white, right and wrong, that we can't see how funny this all is. Humor is really the nectar of a panoramic view or a unified view, to see the big picture versus just black and white, poles just right and wrong. And it seems that a lack of humor is really the opposite. It's a contraction of self. It's a contraction of our consciousness itself, folding in on itself to the point where it cannot escape itself. It cannot see past itself. It's really natural and quite wonderful that when we experience something that is shocking or traumatic, that naturally a contraction occurs of consciousness, where we naturally begin to invert, to kind of figure out what's going on, what's happened, to try to give it some meaning. But that's also one of the traps of turning inward, is a need to find meaning, a need to find control, a need to know. So we sit and we pick through the rubble. I know it's in here somewhere. Where is it? The answer's in here somewhere. And if I know it, then it will never happen again to me. Sometimes trauma is very severe, and it takes a long, long, long time to stop looking through the rubble for the answer. We chant for Banka, the Lotus Sutra, and somebody had come to me last night and said, you know what, I'm really uncomfortable chanting things that I don't know what it means. And it's a very pertinent point. One of the stories in there is a parable of the burning house, and I don't want to get into it. It's a kind of a longer story, but just in essence, it's almost the same as turning inward on ourselves to sift through the rubble to find meaning, to the point where we cannot see anything else but the search for meaning. This pursuit to avoid failure again. A need for control. And it said that there are these children, king's children, and they're in this house, and the house is actually on fire. It's the parable of the burning house, on fire. But yet they're in there, and they are so consumed by what they're doing in their little house, in their little rooms, with their little projects. It says toys. There's playing toys. They just can't, look away from these, enveloping toys. And the house is burning, but they're just oblivious that it's burning down. They're stuck in a burning house. They don't even know it. They're dying. Kanzi, Katsu is that lifeline. We imprison ourselves. It's like a Hotel California. You can check in, but you can never leave, right? So many times we check in inward, but we never leave. And all of this energy, all of our energy becomes poured into this endeavor, right? So we create the instrument of our imprisonment, which is something that's quite natural and quite productive, but yet also can be destructive and lead to fear and survival. Survive. This is about survival. If I don't find this answer, something's going to happen. And this fear and this suffering just feeds and feeds and feeds. I like to call it the Napoleon self. Napoleon has a short man complex, right? Always has to find control, always has to be right. needs to know the answer, is willing to do anything, whether it's damaging or not, in order to gain control and power, feel empowered. You know? So we have this little Napoleon in us that wants to know, demands to know. Life becomes at that point in time survival. Survival. Buddhism is really interesting because if you follow the history of Buddhism, you'll find out that it begins to proliferate in cultures that are economically stable. Must be, for some reason, economically stable in order for Buddhism to really flourish, right? And we have to ask ourselves why. And many times I wonder, is that why? Well, one of the reasons, because people are not so focused on survival. And at the time, especially in India and in China, still to this day in many of these countries, day to day, moment to moment is survival. Having a roof over your head, having food to put in your mouth, your kid's mouth, and your family. Right? But imagine if this type of survival, this kind of pseudo need for survival, was actually not about survival at all in your best interest, but about the survival of the little Napoleon in you that's so afraid of not being, of losing control, of disappearing, of dying, of not knowing. And I see a lot of people too, I did as a police chaplain, that people's lives were so much about survival that they didn't even have the strength anymore to want to continue. On the street, hooked on drugs, everybody's left them. Just so much about survival. Everything, every little thing. They just didn't want to go on anymore. And it's a real extreme example, but I'm doing that for a reason. So you can see kind of this scale between this wonderful humor and this wonderful panoramic view of consciousness itself, and then this dark, small, painful, fear world of just animalistic survival. Many times people that are kind of locked into that survival mode, I find myself, when I say other people, of course, I include myself in this too. Many times when we become locked in survival, or when we become too directed inward, we become rigid. Our views become rigid. Our body becomes rigid. Our thinking becomes rigid. Our emotions become rigid. Everything is black and white. Everything is rigid. Everything is fact, fact, fact. Can't see past it. They're so tight. Just again, think about it. Like the lions behind you. Survival. Everything becomes so tight, waiting for the sword to fall, waiting for the tiger to pounce, waiting for, that failure to come again, or that pain to come again. It becomes so tight. A lot of times, sometimes the way I look at this is like coming home after a hard day sometimes. And you don't realize it, but you're like this. Your shoulders are all scrunched up because we become very rigid from the stress and from kind of dealing in black and white and having to do so to such an extreme that our mind becomes tight and narrow, our body and our emotions follow. Now, humor can be a really great example or a really great measure of our practice or of how caught we are looking in all the time and trying to find, not good looking in, but looking in to try to find answers for everything, looking in to try to find control, power, all of these things. You know, humor can be a really great measure of that because, again, humor is about love. Humor is about joy, right? Right? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that's what the practice is about, right? Love and joy. Finding it, being it. No separation. You know, or is it about right and wrong and didn't pass koan and I know I'm going to fail next time. I don't have the answer. I know I'm going to pass next time. It can be really intimidating sometimes if we look at it that way, right? It can be intimidating a lot of times, right? Do this, don't do that. And sometimes we do what we're told, but then we're told that what we did was wrong, but it's what we were told the first time, and it can get very overwhelming and it can get very confusing, right? People, I think, like Soen Nakagawa, from the stories that I know, and as well as other people, and I think Genja Osho as well, embody a balance of this pushing, but yet also this wonderful joy and this little chuckle at the push. Sometimes they call them Zen fools. And we think, oh no, but no, just joyous, carefree, connected, not caught, a wonderful, loving fool, full of joy. So we kind of cycle back and forth in the practice between, kind of looking within, pondering into this deep well that is us and consciousness itself. And the idea is, in a controlled setting, to be able to peer into that pool, look very deeply, right? But that's not enough. But to pull from the darkness of the murk of that pool and bring into the light and combust, and then go back into that pool again, and then pull out from that dark, murky water until that water begins to clear, even just ever so much as the years go on. I don't think the pool ever gets lucidly clear. I don't know. And, Zen really plays on, these barriers too, or this need to look in, our black and white mentality. That's what Zen does. A lot of people say, I can't stand the ritual and this and that. It just, I don't like it. And I always say, exactly. Exactly. There you go. Don't like it, black and white, and that. Right? Sometimes I don't like it too. Well, but this is really kind of the psychology of this. I mean, if we really think about the history of Zen practice, we have some really smart cookies in our patriarch lineage and matriarchal lineage. There's some smart cookies. Way before the advent of, the American Psychological Association, these guys had figured it out and had been it, seen it, experienced it. And then wonderfully and joyfully, compassionately left us breadcrumbs so that we can follow, or at least use their experience as a tool. Many find when they become very tense and rigid and fearful, it's a natural thing to kind of look within and turn within. And a lot of people seek religion in order to do this and think, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do now. If we approach our vehicle of liberation in the same way that we approach the life that kind of pushed us towards practice or pushed us toward religion, what we're going to do is we're going to find the same thing, the same leopard, which is different spots, right? The same kind of thinking, right and wrong, black and white, that kind of compelled us to look within. Again, if we've gone to that extreme, we end up in the same situation where things become black and white. Now I know, you don't. I have it, you don't. I have to save you, I have to awaken you, I have to correct you. Right? All of a sudden it's me and you, and I have and you don't. And we see this a great deal. And most of the time, we go through this, and I remember going through it. And I remember going through it for years. I spent on the internet arguing with the guy from Dark Zen and another guy who created the Orthodox Church of Buddhism about whether the self existed or if it was anatta or atta. Years! And it was polarized. I was, no, anatta. No. Buddhism says there's no self. And he'd say, no, there's atta. Years we went back and forth. Years! Stuck. Same leopard, different spots. Same behavior, same situation. Years. And it's funny now. There's the humor. Looking back at it, oh, jeez. And Zen has a great way of doing this too, right? We just think we're getting it, or we just think we're there, and then all of a sudden somebody pulls the rug from underneath us, right? A great example of this, first time I went to Choboji in Seattle, right? I'm still in black and white. I'm still into mastering the form, being precise, all of this. And Genjo Osho looks at me and says, I said something, am I doing this right? And he says, no, there is no right and wrong. I was like, what? What? Huh. And then it dawned on me much, much later, and I had the biggest laugh because of the irony of the extremes from going from one to another. How funny. We don't see it. That's the funny thing. Rinzai says like a head upon a head. It's like, everybody that has glasses is probably, had their glasses on their face, and then they're like, where are my glasses? And they go and find their spare and put them on. They're like, oh, geez, there it is. And it's very much the same thing. Very much the same thing. So it's pretty funny. It really is. But if you think what I'm saying is that there's nothing to Zen and it's all funny and it's all a joke and that we shouldn't ever think about right and wrong, well, not so. It's really easy to kind of get struck by the form, whether we're starstruck or we just don't like it. And to find out and hear things like there is no right and wrong, and there's just a bunch of tools. There's nothing special at all about them. They're quite ordinary. We can really kind of fly into the other side, which again is nothing more than this dichotic thinking of none of this matters anymore. It's all empty. Why bother? He just said there's no right and wrong. Why should I even bother? Oh, that's what he's saying, right? Been there, done that. My first session, I passed, well, you can't say past Mu. I had insight into Mu. Didn't need Zen anymore. Didn't need the altar stuff. I literally packed everything up and donated it to a center. Well, didn't work so well. A month later, I found out that I didn't know. And then I just got caught into this kind of Zen sickness, like, oh, everything is empty, everything, and not so. That's not what I'm saying, right? Yeah, it is funny, yeah, because it's empty, but also it's deadly serious, and we strive for perfection of tools. But it must occur, the striving, in order to combust and get out the other side when we find out that the striving and non-striving are really the same thing. That's the funny. That's the irony of it. So humor is really about the fruit of this awakened consciousness, or this immersion into this and a much, much broader, unified, panoramic view versus black and white, you and I, right and wrong. True humor is selfless. It's joyful. It's loving. Right? It's wonderfully liberating. It's not that bad joke that we chuckle at, but I mean, Zen joy is pure. And it's spontaneous, and it's a celebration of life itself. How wonderful! How wonderful to be here for another breath, for another moment. How wonderful to do session. How wonderful. Not, oh, am I going to get it wrong? Oh, I screwed up and everybody knows. I remember the first time I made this huge mistake in Daibusatsu in the middle of session, and I was so concerned that everybody like just looked at me and were like, oh, you're such a, he screwed up so bad. And I came up to the group afterwards in the tea room, and I said, I'm so sorry. And they're like, what for? I'm like, I screwed that up, the Han. I think it was the first time I played the Han. I'm like, okay. Right. So kind of locked. So one more story, and then I know that we have to close. I tend to be more long-winded as a new teacher, and less precise as a Osho, but that's okay. There's just another story about Soen Nakagawa, Osho, and it said one day everybody's in the morning meeting room, and people that have been to Daibusatsu know where that is. It looks out onto the main entrance of the monastery, so you can see kind of the stairs. It's off to the side. Well, apparently everybody's at morning meeting. Were you there for this? Just wondering. The evolution of man.
I don't think so.
Okay. This is a story that actually Genjo Sensei, or Genro Sensei told me. Well, they're in there and they're having a morning meeting, and they look out, and here is Soen Nakagawa, is just his white kimono at the bottom of the stairs, hunched over crinkled up, like, and the stairs go up. Daibusatsu, there's kind of up and then to the side. And he is slowly creeping up the stairs. And as he's creeping up the stairs, he's becoming more and more erect and straight. And I guess everybody's like watching him too. He like the nipped bottle. So everybody's like, what is he doing, you know? So, and at the top of the stairs, he's fully upright, you know, and he's like, everybody's watching him. And they asked him afterwards what he was doing. And he was enacting the evolution of mankind. You know, and again, I mean, it seems silly, right? But how, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's spontaneous. It's open-hearted. It's joyful. It's playful. And that is Zen too. So please don't forget that. So I hope that we continue to find joy and humor, but also we push with every cell in our body. And if we get stuck, that Genjo Osho will bring out the Kanji Katsu!